Fear Zone, your channel of haunted stories and horror. Good evening, everyone, and let's go to the story of today, which is of Mr. Mauricio, and it happened to him in the city of Batatais, which is in the state of Sao Paulo, and at that time, which was in the year 2015, Mr. Mauricio had 36 years. And it all started like this. I work with Uber in my city, which is like a cab service, and being so, one day in the afternoon, I went to pick up a passenger at the bus station in my city, and arriving at this location, soon a man came near my car, and he was the passenger that I had gone to pick up. Then this passenger, who seemed to be around 30 years old, he got into my car, and then he indicated the place where he wanted to go, and I started the trip. After some time I arrived in a neighborhood where many houses were still under construction, but near this village there were many dark and scary woods. Anyway, this man ended up going down to a house that rented rooms and was talking to the owner of the place. Soon after, this passenger paid me, so I left there and went back to my job to make more trips. Soon after, this passenger paid me, so I left there and went back to my work to make more trips. But the next day, at night, I was cleaning my car inside, and I saw a document card inside the car, and so I took the document and looked. Then I remembered the photo, that it was of that guy that I had taken in that house that rented rooms in the rural village. Well, after I worked during the day, I went by car to the rural village to deliver the man's document, and arriving at the house of this man who rented rooms, I got out of the car. I went to the front of the residence to call the man and deliver his document. Then this guy came to meet me at the gate of the house, but he was strange and in a hurry, so I already gave him the document and then started my car and took my way back to my house. Finally, passing through a dirt road, which was a very dark place, and with many woods. However, in the middle of this road, I saw a warehouse that was like a roadside bar, where there were some men drinking in this place, and this made me want to drink something, so I decided to stop my car in front of this place and entered this bar, and ordered a beer, and started drinking, and talking a little. The time went by, and when it was about 11 o'clock at night, suddenly I saw a man walking in the street, and as soon as he passed in front of the bar, I noticed that it was the man I had just handed his document to. The fact is, I found this strange, because I thought, how did he have the courage to walk on the dark road, and so late at night? I thought he would stop at the bar, but to my surprise, this guy walked by in a big hurry, and he didn't even see the bar, and he kept walking and disappeared into the road. However, I left it at that, continued drinking, and soon after, the two men who were at the bar drinking left the place. As time passed, just as I was about to leave the bar, suddenly those two men who had just left the bar came running back to the bar very scared, and they started talking that there was a huge creature with red eyes that looked like a bizarre dog, and this beast was on the road, and it looked like a dangerous animal. One of these men said that maybe this creature was a wolf. These two guys didn't want to leave on foot, and they asked the owner of the bar if he didn't have some weapon, because this dangerous animal was for sure still around, because it could appear at any time in front of his shop. The owner of the bar was in doubt as to whether he would join the conversation of these two guys, but the owner of the bar said that his gun was inside his house, which was behind the establishment, and in all of this, I went to the street and started looking down the dirt road to see if I could find the animal, and that's when I saw a black figure of a beast about 30 meters ahead, but I didn't even know what it was. But the beast stopped walking on the road, and it went into the bush quickly. and disappeared. I found it very strange what that animal did, and surely it could be with the intention of hunting us. Then I told the owner of the bar that there really was a beast around, and so I told the owner to close the bar, because I was going to take the two men away to their homes. These two men got into my car, and the owner of the bar closed his business, and then I started the car, and the two men told me to drive by the animal so that we could see what the beast was. So I drove the car slowly, and as soon as I got close to where the beast was hiding, I stopped my car, but the light from the car's headlight scared the animal, and the creature ran away. But I was really scared by what I saw, because it was a beast very similar to a dog, but much bigger. But I was following this animal by the road, and arriving in a dirt road, I saw this creature trying to pass through a barbed wire fence. And so I cornered this beast, and this creature was kind of confused and scared by the light of the car headlight. And while we were looking at this creature, and it was at this moment that I got a fright, because this animal was standing on only two legs, and he tried to go over the fence, but his coat tangled in the wires of the fence. At this time I thought that for sure it was a werewolf, this beast, because he had a body like a man's body, but with a dark and flawed coat, and his arms were like those of a man, but his head was identical to that of a dog. And the ears of this beast were big, but the legs of this werewolf were like those of an animal, kind of broken back. I was scared with the bizarre appearance of this werewolf, but the eyes of this creature were red, and not yellow as most reports and stories say. But other than that, he couldn't get through the fence, because his fur tangled in the wires of the fence. But the creature gave up on getting through the fence, and he crouched down and stood like a dog on four legs on the ground, and this werewolf ran towards the street and passed to the other side of the road and disappeared into the dark woods. And what I did next was to drive back to the bar, and I told the owner of the bar not to go out on the street because it was very dangerous, and I warned him that what was prowling around nearby was a werewolf, and this bar owner was very scared. Anyway, I took the two men with my car and left them at the house of one of them, and so later I went back to my house, but I was perplexed by what happened. But the next day, I kept thinking about this creature, and I was worried because it was something dangerous, this beast, and it could attack someone. However, soon I remembered the man where I gave his document, and I was worried about this guy because he passed in front of the bar, and after some time, that werewolf appeared. I even thought that the werewolf could have attacked him on that dirt road. Then I decided to go to the house where he was living to see if nothing had happened to him, and that I took my car. I went to the residence where this guy had rented a room, and arriving there, who answered was the owner of the inn. Then I asked about the man with the document, and the owner of the house told me that this guy with the document arrived at the house in the morning and got his travel bag and paid his daily rate and left. I found it a little strange, this story, him leaving suddenly, but at least he was okay. The next day, I went back to the bar on the road where I had seen the werewolf and talked to the owner of the bar, and he told me that at night he would no longer open his shop. The fact is, I thought and began to suspect that the guy with the document was the suspected werewolf. Well, I can't say that that man was the werewolf, but from the clues, he was the suspect. After this experience that I had with this beast that I saw in front of me, I wonder how many times these creatures have attacked people in Brazil and other places in the world, because these werewolves exist, and this was my experience of terror that I lived. Good guys, if you liked the story, like and subscribe to the channel until the next story. Canal Fear Zone, your channel of haunted stories. And here, you will find real stories which may be true, in which are ordinary people who relate their experiences that lived with a werewolf. And now, let's go to one more horror story, which is from a young man named Rodrigo, and this happened to him in the year 2008 and was in the city of Irati, which is in the state of Parana in Brazil. And to begin this story, I live in a neighborhood on the outskirts of the city where there are many forests around, and at that time, I was just a very small boy. But to begin my story is that my grandfather lived on a small farm where I always spent the weekends on his property. One day I was having fun on my grandfather's farm where there were many trees and various fruit trees, and then I was playing on the property with the dogs. But the fact is, that day, when I was at my grandfather's house, something happened at dawn, because suddenly his dogs started barking a lot, and it seemed that there was something in the place that the dogs wanted to attack, because then I started to hear the dogs running from one side to the other, and they were after something. But I realized that my grandfather woke up, and he turned on the lights. And he started to walk around the house to see what was happening. Then he went to the backyard. I was curious, and started to look out the window to see what was happening, and I saw my grandfather with a rifle in his hands, and he was walking with the dogs in the pasture, and seemed to be looking for something. But suddenly, when I looked near some trees, I got a big scare, because there was something there, and it seemed to be a man hiding behind a tree, but in that area of the farm it was dark, and you couldn't see what was there. But I also realized what was hiding. It kept looking in my grandfather's direction, and soon that shadow changed trees, and was hiding chasing my grandfather. I saw the danger. I shouted to him that there was something behind the tree, and it was at this moment that he pointed the rifle in the direction of the trees, but that shadow did not come out from behind the trunk, and the dogs were afraid of that, and kept barking from afar. My grandfather told that figure to get out of there, because he was going to shoot it, but I think the creature growled at my grandfather, kind of challenging him. Then the old man fired 2 shots at the trunk where the figure was hiding, but the thing ran out on its feet and went to the pasture, and by that time I saw that it was a creature, and this animal soon got on all fours and started running away, and seeing that it was coming towards me, I closed the window quickly and locked the door of the house, and I was very scared to see it, because it was something weird, because its body looked like a man's body, and it had a dog's head, and its fur was black. Other than that, I heard another shot, and with that I looked out the window again, and saw the creature running already outside the farm, and my grandfather hurrying back to the house, so I opened the door for him to come in, and my grandfather stayed awake and on guard with the rifle in his hands. My grandmother also woke up this dawn, but she was calmed down by my grandfather, who said it was just an invading animal. After a few hours, the day dawned, and the werewolf did not appear. However, my father came to pick me up to return home, but in this I saw my grandfather talking with my father, and they said it was a werewolf that entered the farm. Well, the fact that also I realized that at that time was that my father and grandfather drove their pickup truck around the region for several nights, and they were after this werewolf, but they found nothing, and not a clue of this creature. With all that happened, I was traumatized with this horror story that I spent with the werewolf, and for a long time did not return to the farm of my grandfather. Time passed, and even today I remember that dawn that I really saw that werewolf, and never forget it. And this was my real story. I spent the danger with the werewolf invader. Guys, if you liked the video, give a like and subscribe to our channel Fear Zone. Fear Zone, your channel of real horror stories. Good evening everyone, and we go to the story of today, which is Mr. Valder, and it happened to him in the city of Myuu, which is in Brazil, and this report was in the year 2010, when Mr. Valder was 32 years old. And today I will tell my story, and show how these werewolves are violent creatures, because I had to save the life of a person who was attacked by a werewolf. And it all started like this. At that time of the occurrence, I was working as a pizza delivery boy at night, and I worked until about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I lived in a normal neighborhood in my city. But one day when I was coming home from work at the crack of dawn, something happened in my life that I will never forget, because I was riding my motorcycle along a dirt road that I always took to get back home faster. And that's when I heard on my way someone screaming for help, and I saw through the headlight of my motorcycle a huge animal, and it was chasing a man through the middle of the dirt road, so I increased the speed of the motorcycle to see better what was happening. I started following the animal along the road, and also honking my motorcycle horn, to see if the animal would stop running after the man, and at that moment that huge creature stopped running, and stayed on the road waiting for me. But I found it strange the way this animal was watching me, and it was certainly afraid of the light from my motorcycle's headlight, but I stood there to see if the creature would go away so I could continue my trip. While I was thinking about what I was going to do, I looked right at that strange animal, and got a fright, because this animal had its eyes lit up. I found this very strange, and also, I didn't know what it was, but the animal was very quiet there. I even think that it was standing still, just waiting for me to pass by it, for this animal to attack me. The fact is that dirt road was very dark. The beast was about 20 meters away from me, and even so, I was still a little afraid, because of the size of this beast. But as I wanted to go through that road anyway, I did something at that time that I regretted, and was that I threw the light of the bike in the face of this animal, and I've honked several times, but the reaction of this creature was amazing, because the animal got up and stood up like a man, and I was very scared at that time, because what I was seeing was a werewolf for sure, and this animal was still looking at me angry, but it seemed that the light of the bike prevented this beast to come to attack me. But the werewolf, then, he ran into the woods beside the road, and with the action of this creature, I turned my bike back to where I was coming from, and after I arrived in a nearby neighborhood, I took another path, and thus managed to get to my house. Well, I was already inside my house, and I kept thinking about the werewolf that I had just seen on the road, and also about the man who was running away from the werewolf, and how lucky he was that I was on that dirt road at that time, and was able to distract the beast so that he could escape. And I never again passed that dirt road at night, and after this event in my life, I became more attentive and smarter, to walk the streets deserted and dark at night, not to be surprised again by this creature, and that was my horror story. Hello everyone, if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and leave your like, to receive more content from our channel Fear Zone.